All right. Welcome everybody to Midnight Hatter Live, the weekly variety show where we talk Gundam, gaming, and occasionally guitars. I am, of course, Steven, aka Midnight Hatter, your host. Joining me, as always, is the Blue Gamer and Gundam explainer, Adam Blue, and our special guest today, if you will welcome him, the master of hammer-ons and pull-offs, Wayne Snow, aka Howling at the Earth. How are you doing, my friend?
That's so funny.
Yeah,
That's
that's
all
good.
it is. If you wanna play guitar like me, that's all it is, just hammer-ons and pull-offs.
Dude, that's like I saw these tasty riffs and I was like, "I need to talk to this man." He's, no, but thank you for joining us today, and, I hope you are doing well. Hope everyone in the chat is doing well too. I see we've got some of our usual suspects, Ultronymous and King Dylan. Go ahead and drop any questions that you might have for Wayne in the chat, and we'll try to get to them as we can. But, yeah, so today, obviously we have a little bit of a different guest because it's a musical guest, which, we typically don't have here on the show. But, so yeah, to justify that, let me explain. It's my show and I'll talk to whoever I want. No, but no, in seriousness, I think that, like, as the show has gone on, we've kind of expanded our reach to be something about inspiring and empowering people to pursue their creative passions. And while that means like video games and model kits for things like Adam and I, also a lot of you guys are musicians in the chat. So I thought it would be nice to talk to someone who's actually doing the thing, right? And get some firsthand perspective on it. So Wayne, if you could just take an opportunity to kind of introduce yourself and tell us about your music, what you do, and how you got started.
Hey, yeah, my name's Wayne Snow. I play music full time and have been pretty much, I guess, more than or about half my life now, which is pretty insane. It's funny because the two things I never thought I'd ever be able to do is like play guitar and like skateboard, and that's like all I do now, like a self manifestation or whatever. But yeah, so I mainly play and call myself Howling at the Earth, which is involves me playing solo a lot or playing with right now a three-piece band, which is like me and two other dudes. And I don't know, I just do play what I want a lot. I like playing guitar. I think it's cool.
Nice, yeah. So where did the name Howling at the Earth come from?
So actually it was I got a gift from a friend and it was like a werewolf on the moon because I had a thing about like wolves in like high school. And like their dad was like, "Oh, howling at the earth." And I was like, "Okay, pocketing that."
Save that one for later, for sure.
A later time. But yeah, then I think it kind of also goes to I don't know. I think people will always people will ask you for advice and like then they don't really follow that advice,
Mhm.
but
Mm.
they're also like, wow, that really makes sense.
Yeah.
Or just like, just being ignored in general, like just trying to be seen. That's kind of what it feels like. You're just howling at the earth, especially like when you've been doing music as long as I have been,
Yeah.
and trying to figure out ways to just like get things out there and be heard.
Yeah, I mean, and especially, like, kind of living in our current digital age
Yeah,
where, you're competing for people's attention, and people's attention spans are so much shorter,
yeah.
getting someone to listen to a 3 to 5-minute song is impossible if you don't have a 3-second hook that can really
Oh,
I
pull them in.
constantly feel like that spec and Horton here's a who.
Yeah.
When they're like, we're here," and I'm just looking for that yop, you know?
Exactly, yeah, so and that is something that kinda drew me to your work as well is because it really does feel like the music business is not the same as it was when, the 3 of us were growing up where it was like, "Oh, we're just gonna do, like, a battle of the bands and get signed to a record deal, and then all of our dreams are gonna come true." It's like, you really you become your own advocate, you become your own marketer, and I have to say, you kind of crush it on social media, like, I see you constantly posting on Instagram, constantly posting YouTube shorts and things like that to, really get yourself out there. What is that experience like when you're kind of having to be your own marketing manager?
It's a double-edged sword because like you kind of go in it with like a bunch of expectations and then like no expectations, and sometimes it's like the video you spend hours editing and then like you put it out and it's like it gets a little bit more like traction than what you would post if you just kind of put your phone out and like, put something out. And then there are the videos where you're just like filming the sky and that just blows up for whatever reason, you know?
Yeah,
Well,
it's really hard to determine what's going to be viral.
yeah, it's a little disheartening like for that reason. But there are pros to it, I think. I think that since I don't really have to cater to a mass, it's kind of like you're more able to kind of just fit your niche. Like I remember the first time that I had a viral video, went viral for me
Yeah.
on like TikTok. Like I was just trying to find more people that like Fooly Cooly, you know? So I was like, "Do you know where this riff is from?" And I just played like the main riff from like the intro, the shout out the pillows. And you know, I think Fooly Cooly in itself is like a big, like small, like niche like, group of people actually know it and love it.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
that the algorithm like found that, and then I found a bunch of other people who like Fooly Cooly, and like that video got like I don't know, like 30,000 views in like two
Wow.
hours. So that
Wow.
was cool, you
Yeah.
know,
That
And
is
and
I
not
think that
even
that's a
for the
great way to
fact that
find, like, kindred spirits, right? Like,
yeah,
you can, like, really find your tribe
oh, yeah.
with those types of, niche, appeals, right?
yeah, and that wasn't even me trying to market myself. That was just me trying to find people who liked Fooly Cooly, which I guess that was really the cool thing about that. So,
Yeah. And so that brings me to sort of my next question because it was like, when I reached out to you, I would asked about your influences and stuff because I saw you wearing a BMO hat and I was like, "Oh man, is this guy like a geek like one of us? Is he you know?" And so, yeah, I mean, you mentioned that anime and video games and like kind of that geek culture is a big part of your influence. Can you tell us more about that? Like how does that drive your creative passion in music?
I think we can all kind of agree that one of the coolest things about anime are like their intros and their outros.
Oh, 100%.
You know? Like, you can't tell me you didn't love Rock the Dragon from Dragon Ball Z, you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
So yeah. So one of the main reasons I started playing music, like I said before, was because of Fooly Cooly. Um, I actually have Conti like tattooed on the side of me.
You just
Uh,
wanted to hit someone with a bass, didn't you? Like, you just
huh? Yeah.
you just wanted to, like, axe chop them with a
Actually, yeah,
bass.
that's exactly why I started playing guitar. Yeah. Yeah, I was just like, "Yeah, I'm gonna fight people with this guitar," and then at some point, I was like, "Okay, I guess I'll learn how to play this thing." Uh, so yeah, that's really the reason I started playing music, and also, like, if you've s I don't know if you've seen Fooly Cooly or not, or
Yeah, I remember watching it, like, late night, Toonami,
mhm.
um
Yeah, I think its overall presentation of how they kind of executed that like Toonami, they put it on at like 1 AM, 12:30,
yeah.
something like that. Like the first episode is like really mysterious. You just see two characters and then all hell breaks loose. And like I'm very ADHD and that really like it did something to me. And yeah, I think the overall show just executed really well. And music is kind of it's like a weird undertone of it, you know?
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
it's kind of interesting where it's almost like, I don't know what the phrase is, whether it's like one hand washes another, but it's like you can see where a lot of musical influence came into the sort of chaotic, raw animation style of Fooly
Yeah.
Cooly, and so it's very interesting to see how, like, I think that the animators were definitely driven by music, and then it's fascinating to me that then that translates into, the anime inspiring your music. It's almost like it's like,
Yeah,
you know
they absolutely go hand in hand, I mean, that's, like, the main reason I got into animation is because I wanted to kind of throw them together. Yeah, and fun fact about Fooly Cooly, apparently they were given, like, a huge budget to make 20 episodes, and they just spent it all on 6.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So
that's
so
why
I've never heard of this, but it's a very musically infused anime?
well, yes and no.
Oh,
So, it's like a coming of age story, like, kid meets older woman and, like,
Yeah.
crazy things starts happening. But their weapons are like guitars and basses.
yeah, that's what I see in the pics. That looks awesome,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah,
Right.
it's really I mean, I was like 10, 11 when I first watched it, so it
Ah.
just made sense.
Well, it's like Metalocalypse for me because 'cause I've always been into metal and
Oh,
played metal music, so when Metalocalypse came out, like, I was like,
yeah.
"Oh, this is my thing," because it was, like, kinda being the atmosphere of music when I was watching it and being able to hear it. Yeah, that was a cool time.
It was. I feel like there were, like, a lot of kind of music or, like, rock and roll shows during that time in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that that was, like, a very, rock and roll period for
Mhm.
animation in general, like, you kind of look at the attitude behind, like, Toonami and Adult Swim, and they kind of had this, like, sort of devil may care approach to the shows that they were the shows that they licensed, and then, of course, the shows that they ended up producing themselves,
Yeah,
and
I mean, like, you look at, like, Samurai Champloo and, like, it was very,
yeah.
like, hip hop samurai, you
Dude,
know?
that was
And
I
and
love Shampoo.
no, that
You
reminds me
know?
too, 'cause, even in that time period, like, wasn't it where Guitar Hero and Rock Band was then
Yes.
becoming, like,
Yes,
big?
it
So
was.
there's that was a neat time. Everything was getting digital, but it was kinda going back to the analog way of
Mhm.
almost teaching people or getting people into music through that.
Yeah, and
That's
I mean, like,
cool.
during that Guitar Hero time, I was already playing guitar, but I will say that playing Guitar Hero made me better at guitar.
Oh, really? What way? Do you think maybe
Um,
helping with rhythm, perhaps?
no, more so just, like, introducing me, a lot more dexterity. I was very chord heavy at the time,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
and so then I
I
actually got
am
into,
chord heavy.
like, that's when I got into, like, AC/DC and,
Ah, yeah,
bands like that that were very, like, riff heavy. So
Yeah, it does
yeah.
expose you to, like, different types of playing guitar, and again, I think that the hammer-ons and pull-offs are all right there with Guitar Hero.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
I think there
yeah.
was even, oh, man, way back in the day during, like, the G4 days, I think they had, Kevin Pereira, like, was playing Rock Band, and he was doing the drums, and, like, Coheed and Cambria brought him up to play Welcome Home, like, on an actual kit because they were like, "Oh,
What?
yeah."
That's neat.
Did you guys ever see that video?
No.
It's so wild because it's
What?
like
That's
yeah,
really
like,
wild.
he, like, puts down, like, a red circle and a yellow circle, like, on different parts of the drum kit, and he's like, "Okay," like, "Let me play the intro to, Welcome Home,"
Wow, and how'd
and he
that go?
nails it.
Really?
Yeah, it was
That's
awesome.
it. That's
So,
really
I think
cool.
that there is something to that, like,
Mhm.
tactile nature of even imitation music
And that's,
kind
like,
of
how I learn, it's
yeah.
all monkey see, monkey do.
Oh, yeah. That's
Yeah,
what it is a lot of times. I'll see something, I'm like, "Oh, I can do that," because you're
yeah,
excited. You see
yeah.
that and you appreciate it. It's like, "Oh, that would be fun to produce," and so that kinda sometimes scatters me because I'll wanna draw, and then I wanna make music, and then I wanna, like, make this or make that, and sometimes it's hard
Great
for me
start in
to.
my life,
But
like,
how was
100%.
it for you to be able to, like, really kinda narrow in and focus on guitar?
I wasn't good at anything else.
Oh, really?
Like,
Okay, so with guitar, it
yeah.
kinda just clicked with you?
Yeah, it kinda just made sense, I guess
Ah,
I
cool.
just had a decent ear, and I just picked it up pretty fast. So, I don't know,
Okay, that's cool.
hyper
Yeah.
focused.
Yeah, it's been interesting because even, like, when I would first play, it was guitar. In the early
Mhm.
20s, I'd play with a band, we would just cover stuff. One day, the drummer had to quit, and since it was 2 guitarists, I just said, "Well, I'll fill in for drums." That clicked with me way more than guitar. At
Hmm,
that point, I was like, "Oh, I can't believe I spent
really?
money on guitar, practicing guitar," but drums are way more natural for me,
'Cause
so
that's what I completely suck at.
isn't that interesting how it's
Is
just
drumming,
completely
yeah.
different things? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely the, coordination factor, not having to use your feet with guitar, I
Mm.
always just was like, which one is gonna get me more girls?" And
That's yeah, that's where the guitar came in at
yeah,
first.
Right?
um,
I was the opposite.
spoiler alert,
No
didn't
one
none
must
of them
know that
worked
I
for
play
me.
guitar at all.
What was
Um,
that?
I was the opposite. I was like, "No one must know that I play guitar at all."
Oh, interesting. So it was a real personal thing for you, like, when you
Yeah,
first
I
started.
mean yeah, I
That's
mean, I
cool.
like to I don't know, there was, like God, there was, like, just pure joy and excitement when you, like, learn, like, a new riff or a new song, and it sounds like what it sounds like on, like, the CD or the radio, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I remember, like, back when MTV still played music, like, trying to, wake up early enough and like listen to that last part of like Holiday or whatever by Green Day to try
Yeah.
to like learn how that part went because I didn't have the CD yet. So
Mm.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it was kind of like it was like open up a pack of Pokemon cards, like
Yeah, I
you
don't
just like you don't you're like waiting to like get what you can get and like I don't know. Maybe I'm not explaining that right. But if that makes sense.
no, I think that I can understand the feeling and, there's something novel about that ability to, we were just talking about this, before we went live was playing riffs that people recognize, whether
Mhm.
it's, the intro to an anime, whether it's, a song that's popular on the radio and stuff like that. It's almost this kind of shared culture that you can kind of find people that connect with you in the same way as like collecting cards. It's when you show someone like, hey, I pulled the hollow Charizard, then it's
Mm,
like, oh, that's awesome. Except there's something more personal about it because you've actually taught yourself like how to play a riff, and it's like, oh man, I could never get that solo down. That's how I felt the first time I played. There's a solo in a Static Lullaby song that, me and my high school friends were always trying to nail it. Is it I forget what the song title was, but, yeah, there's this totally sick, way out of place for a screamo band, but
huh.
it's like this, like, serious, like, metal solo, and I remember when I hit it for the first time, I was like, "Dude, Tyler, did you hear that?" Like like, I finally got it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
That
yeah, that
that's
was,
cool.
like, me learning, like, that not even, like, the whole solo, but just, like, that little instrumental guitar part and, like, Bad Country.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
It's like
That's
super
funny,
hilarious.
bringing that up because Avenged Sevenfold, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, like, I remember when I first got into them, it was actually and this is trying to I'm not trying to sound elitist or anything, but they had their demo come out of their first album, and then their second and for me, that wasn't necessarily my type of music, but it seemed like it was merging more of the emo style of,
Yeah.
rock, but with metal and punk, and I was like, "This is actually very interesting." But it's interesting how when they went really mainstream and popular, they kinda just went traditional metal. I
Mm.
not
Mhm.
that that's bad or good, I don't know, but I've always find that aspect interesting, like, AFI is another band that
Mhm.
I loved in high school. Black Sails, everything before Art of Drowning, because it was that time, like, I loved it. And then, yeah, with that, I forget what the name of the album was, after Art of Drowning, and then they, like, went mainstream, but it was softer music, but I hate to default to, "Oh, they sold out, now they make simpler music." I don't think that's the case, but it's still
Yeah,
a
I
weird
don't
thing in my
really
head.
believe in selling out, like, like,
Styles
music
evolve and change over time.
Yeah,
yeah,
see, there's a little bit of that, but then I find it interesting for, like, a band like Avenged Sevenfold, for instance, is they had a unique style they almost made up, and then
mhm,
instead of kind of evolving their unique style, they just now play traditional metal, and and it's interesting because like, one of my other favorite bands, Bad Religion, their drummer well, once they got the new drummer, it was the guy from Bad Religion, and I was like, "Wow,
mhm,
that's amazing," and then I look at Bad Religion, they're still around, but they play the same music they always did. So I
mhm.
always find that interesting. I don't and I'm not
I
trying to
wonder,
claim
do you think I've never been to Avenged Sevenfold like concert. I'm sure they're still playing like Bad Country. It's like when you go to a Fall Out Boy concert
Yeah.
and they're still playing like
well,
Sugar and like
You
Dance
have to play
Dance
the
and
hits, like, you don't have a
yeah,
choice.
yeah,
you know?
I saw Avenged Sevenfold not too long ago, actually. It was either beginning of this year or the end of last year, I forget, but it it's mainly their new stuff, but they did play, like, Backcountry or, like,
Oh, you
Confessions
you did recently see them.
Yeah,
Oh, wow,
yeah,
cool.
just I again, it was either the
I bet that
beginning
was
I think it
awesome.
was the end of last year,
Wow.
here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But, and then I saw AFI, the tour they were before, and they didn't play anything that I liked, but it was just cool to see Davey Havok
No
because I
Miss
had met
Brenda?
them before back when I would see them, when I was a teenager, and there's a big connection there because when we're kids or when we're younger and we hear the things that influence us, they're
Yeah.
still with us today, even if we don't realize it,
Yeah,
you
I
know?
know.
Yeah.
It's so
Definitely.
funny, like, God, so I am from West Virginia. I live in the Eastern Panhandle. But there's still like so much bluegrass around here. And, like, not that I, like, dislike bluegrass, like, obviously, that's not the type of music I play, though.
Right.
Like, a lot of my friends, a lot of people that I end up jamming with, like, they play, like, Americana or bluegrass. One of the most talented songwriters I know is, like, an Americana, songwriter. Shout out Trip Mall Ballads. Um, but so I was posting some, like, riffs or whatever on, like, Reddit, on, like, the Midwest emo forum or whatever, and someone even said, like, "Wow, like, your riffs are almost kinda like banjo playing." And I was like,
Oh,
"Wow,
that's neat.
like,
Interesting.
It's almost like the tremolo, would you say? Like tremolo picking?
I th I think it's because I do a lot of, like, alternative picking,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
and, like,
Yeah.
yeah, you see a lot of that and kind of, like, I have no idea how to play banjo, like, at all, at least not,
Well,
like,
yeah. I
efficiently,
mean,
Until
it
you
but I
pick one
can
up, maybe, and
until
then
you
it'll
pick
be one
one
of your
up.
songs, and it might,
Yeah, but I can see how, like, that style of music and, like, just kinda fast playing in general, all on the right hand might have, like, influenced me a lot, especially within, like, the past couple of years.
yeah, I
No,
mean, I
that's
think even
interesting.
just being in that environment, you kind of, like, naturally
Mhm.
soak it up even if you don't realize it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because, like, I so another style of music I got into in the past 5 or 6 years or so is, like, black metal.
Hmm.
Normally, I wouldn't listen to something that intense, but over time, it's like, I think listening to stuff like shoegaze, traditional
Mm.
metal, it kinda, like, merged, and then I was like, "Okay, I understand this style."
The
But then
gateway
I
drug.
started finding YouTube videos where they were showing black metal, but tuned to, surf rock, and they sound the same. It's just one has the it's, like, detuned, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
And faster
awesome.
drums, but they sound the same
Yeah.
because it's, like, the fast, like,
Mhm.
picking, and I found again, it's, like, interesting where I think sometimes what we see maybe looks different, but there's kind of a core similarity in how we're expressing, like, the sound.
Yeah, I feel like
I don't know.
and see, and that's people in general,
Yeah,
right? We're all the same
yeah,
thing, just tuned to a different frequency.
yeah,
Pretty
that's great.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, wow, yeah.
I mean, it's fascinating where you can and I do this both in, like, my professional career and, like, what I do on YouTube, where it's like you'll take inspiration from one place and then apply it in a different context, and all of a sudden people think you're some
See,
kind
and
of
I think
genius.
that's, like, why I love anime so much, you know?
Mm,
Because that's,
Oh,
like, you know, you're taking, like, Gundam, where you're seeing, like, child soldiers and, like, all these complex emotions of, like, PTSD and, like, brainwashing, and, like, you're adding in giant robots, and it's freaking sick, but, like, those are, like, real things that are literally happening right now.
yeah,
dude, Adam and I talk about this, like, pretty much every week, where it's like
Mhm.
a lot of these animes and, like, we've been talking a lot about X-Men '97 because,
Oh,
we love
yeah.
the old X-Men
I still
show
haven't
too.
seen any of that, but, like, it looks like it's pretty sick.
Dude,
Like, the
it's
X-Men Cyclops look cool, so, like
right, like, they actually give him his due.
I
But,
know.
I mean, I
cool.
think that Gundam and, like, anime and a lot of these cartoons have an ability to say something poignant about humanity and
Mhm.
about our culture without, defaulting to just saying it, it's like you use these sort of proxies,
Mhm.
where you can enjoy a cartoon about giant robots, but you're actually, learning something about politics and war that you wouldn't necessarily have considered if it were just in a
Right.
textbook.
Yeah,
Right,
and
yeah,
another
yeah.
thing about that, with anime, like you're saying, is in live action, a production company might be like, "Oh, this is too crazy to do live." And I think
Mhm.
that's what's cool about anime, and I've learned, like, you'll watch something that's anime, and it'll have such a crazy story and ideas that no production company would wanna do live action because 'cause they're like, "Wait a minute, this is crazy. How would we have the budget to do all this crazy stuff?" But yeah, with anime, you can express so much.
Yeah, and I think also it's just, like, I don't know, it's especially it's, like, the camaraderie, again, like, among enemies that you
Mm,
see in a lot of these shows too,
yeah.
where I
They
feel
have
like
better villains that it's almost like you feel for them, or maybe they don't seem like a villain, but they are. Yeah, anime
There's, like, a
it
explores that a
feels
lot.
chivalry
like
there.
yeah, it just
Yeah.
feels like it's kinda just like the human condition of, like, "I want this to happen, I want this to happen, well, we have to do something about that to, like, understand each other. Let's fight."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whose conviction is more.
I always bring up that example from, like, the original Gundam series where Char helps Amuro change a tire on his car because it's like, these are guys that have been trying to kill each other for months, and they encounter each other, and they're both in uniform, they both realize
Mhm.
that they're enemies, but it's like, "Hey, we're not in our mobile suits right now, we're just
We're not
gonna."
on the battlefield, yeah.
And
Oh,
and
yeah.
so it's such a cool contextual moment.
It's like, what was it? Maybe in like World War II, where I think it was like Christmas Eve, and they're
Oh,
like
yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
World
World War
War
One.
One.
Yeah,
Yeah,
World War One, and they're
yeah,
like in the trenches, and they all just started singing.
yeah, they had, like, a Christmas ceasefire, which was it's yeah, it's hard for me to imagine people nowadays doing that.
well, I don't know,
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is it says a lot about the individual,
Hmm.
versus the oppressor. In a way.
Mm,
Like, if you're fighting for your country, you're almost being oppressed by your country, and maybe that's the wrong way to put it, but in a
Hmm.
way, you kind of are because you're told to do these things that could get you killed. Yeah, for the
Yeah.
name of your country, but then at the core, wouldn't you, if you could, just go to that person and be like, "Hey, let's figure out our differences." But the rules of the country are, no, you're gonna fight, and so, yeah, sometimes we don't get to see that or have a chance to do that.
it's a good
Hmm.
point.
I guess that's more of an optimistic view, but it could be true.
Yeah. Thinking
Well, then
about
I have to
that
ask
kind of put me
because,
in a
we are oh, go ahead.
no, I was saying that kind of put me in a state. I'm just kind of thinking about that
Yeah,
now.
it's an odd, yeah, thing, yeah.
It's like it's kind of it's weird because like we're talking about like two people fighting essentially hand to hand, and then where my brain kind of stops is when you're talking about now, and like everything's kind of more digital now,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and where there's like not so much human interaction.
Yeah, you're
And
hidden behind something where you don't really have to care about the person as much because you don't have to interface with their emotions and kinda help
humanize,
manage that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Dude, I
It's
it's
really
complain
sad.
about that all the time where it's like the
Mhm.
dehumanization of interacting digitally where
Oh
you
yeah,
don't
and that's like literally what they're talking about in Gundam Wing right now.
Yeah.
Like where I am.
Well,
Yeah.
and it's crazy because then they tie in, like, the mobile dolls, right, and, like, the
Mhm.
AI, and it's like, now I don't know if you have much experience, like, messing around with these large language models and stuff, but, like, when I see the way that people will type and talk to the AIs, it's like they're so
Mhm.
rude, and it's like, if this is the way that you're training people to socialize by talking to
AI, really? Oh,
computers in,
people are
like, a
training
rude
AI.
and, like oh,
Huh.
man, it's a scary thought.
Wow.
Well, and it's interesting because, like, far in the past, you could have a country or whatever say, "Hey, there's an enemy beyond." And then you don't meet them, you don't know them, so you're just assuming, "Okay, there's an enemy
They
that
must
could
be
be
bad
coming."
guys.
And then
Mhm.
and then it kinda shifted, like maybe 100 years ago, it started where now people are driving, so then they're driving around everywhere, and you're not having to actually interface directly with them, but you are interacting, and because
Right.
you're not, even though you're in a car physically near them, you kinda really can't emotionally interact, so you can just be negative and be like, "Ah, get out of my way, you're going too slow." And then now with the internet, it's like even anywhere, anytime, you could just sit there and have that same sort of like faceless, emotionless sort of way about it. And yeah, I think yeah, we gotta kinda get back,
Yeah.
back from that.
Back to the the real human interaction.
Which
Uh,
music provides a lot of that. It's like a
yeah.
healing in a way. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that people should, consume live music more because not only is it I mean, it's just good for the soul, honestly, and it
Yeah.
brings you in contact with other people with, similar interests in an environment that isn't, um, that's just naturally inviting and naturally,
Yeah,
like
I don't think I've ever felt more safe than in a room full of people that like the same band as me, you
Oh,
know?
yeah. It's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting. So I remember even at my the current job I had when I first started, there was this guy that started, and we were talking about liking music. I never bring up like the metal bands I listen to because I feel like, oh, they won't know what I'm talking
Mm.
about. But with this guy, I brought it up, and he's like, "Oh, I know that band," and then we became super close just because of these
Open up that pack of
bands.
Pokemon cards.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Like, these bands, I don't know anyone who wants to talk about it, but this guy, oh, then we can talk
Yeah.
about how the drumming sounds, how the guitar
Mhm.
sounds, and it's like such a neat way to engage with someone,
Yeah,
when
it's
you
a
can share
shared
that.
language,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's
So
really yeah.
it's funny because like I do a lot of like like bar gigs, like solo bar gigs, and mainly just and, like I never play a song that I don't like, but it's like a lot of pop songs that I wouldn't necessarily listen to, but I'm like oh that's kind of cool. It could be fun to play, so I
Yeah.
sing. But every so often I'll like just throw in a Coheed song, just to see, like, I'll just play like the opening riff of Welcome Home, or like, what's that other song? A Favor House. I'll play that to see who's out
Yeah.
there. you know,
And they're probably sick of playing that song too because they've been playing it for 20 years, but
oh,
they
but
I
it's
I
so
guarantee
good.
you they still play it at their shows.
They do, they do. I feel like every time I've gone to go see Cody and Cambria, and this is over like a 3-4 year time period, they always play Welcome Home, and they always play A Favor House Atlantic because it's
They
so
have to.
good. But yeah, yeah, and then, like, every once in a while, one or two people will come to me and be like, "Was that Coheed?" Like, "One of us."
Yeah, man.
That's cool.
Exactly. It's that shared cultural language that I think you can and I mean, so I've seen you play a couple of covers as well that are, where you've taken a song that that isn't like an emo or like rock song and then like, kind of played it in your own style. And that's always
Mm,
um an interesting way of doing things. Like I love seeing people do that.
yeah. Yeah, and I think my voice is just, like, a little bit more aggressive in general. So, the emo whiny boy comes out regardless.
No, but I love it. Like I think that and I'm glad that you brought up Coheed because I was like, when I first heard Avalanche, I was like, holy crap, this guy sounds like Claudio. Like
I have no idea, like, somehow the algorithm for that video, I guess the one that everyone's seeing, has gotten to, like, the Dance Gavin Dance.
Oh,
Like,
interesting.
yeah, so if you actually look at those comments, every other one would be like, "Dance Gavin Dance, Dance Gavin Dance," and I'm like,
hmm.
"This is
But
cool."
yeah,
Like,
it's interesting to see how that has trended,
mhm,
just that one clip. But and yeah, I mean, ever since I've heard it, it's like it's Avalanche and Accountability, or I've just been streaming like
heck yeah,
nonstop those two over and over again.
I love that one. That's like my, accountability, that's like my ode to the pillows. Yeah,
I love it. Yeah.
the drummer hates that song, but I like it a lot.
Well, you can't please everyone, and you know what? Again, you gotta play the hits even if you don't want to. I'm sure that, they're like especially when you have, bands that, cycle members and stuff, it's like, oh, I don't wanna play this track from an old album that I wasn't even
Mhm,
on," like
yeah,
that's the way I felt when I was playing, gigs in college with this band, The Spies. I wasn't on the album at all. I only did the live performances, and so I was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and go through the motions," kinda thing. I mean, it's still
yeah,
fun, but, it was alright.
That's funny. That reminds me of when I would jam with the bands I'd play with, mainly in my 20s. I think I stopped when I was in my early 30s, but they always wanted to do covers, which was fine at first, but after a while, I was like, "Guys, let's write our own stuff." But no
yeah,
one wanted to, and I think that's okay. I think there's those different types of musicians. There's people that just love to jam with songs they love, and then like me,
mhm,
it's like, "Oh, what if we did this and made this sound?" And sometimes
mhm.
that's hard though. That's hard to really find people, and when you do, you wanna hold on to them because it's really hard to find that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But so here's another thing. So when it comes to music, for me, when I'm watching a show or playing a video game or a movie, like for me, the music is key. It's like I want the music to be good. Sometimes I might still like something even if the music isn't good, but like the music drives me. So like if I'm like Gundam, the music is sick. So when I'm not watching Gundam, I'm listening. Same
Mhm.
thing with like video games and stuff. Do you find that same thing with you?
Yeah, so I kinda see music, some people have, like, synesthesia. I don't think I have, like, synesthesia, but, like, I that's how I see music, is, like, cinematic.
Oh,
Yeah.
So,
oh,
like, if
okay.
I'm, like, looking out the window, there is, like, music playing in my head of what that
Yeah.
scene looks like, and it's usually how Miyazaki inspired, at least visually, you
Oh.
know?
I
Uh,
can dig that.
Yeah,
yeah.
because I think that happens to me too. Like, there's always a song in my head. There is
Mm.
always something, and then if I'm listening to music, I might then go listen to that to kinda, like, help. But, yeah, there's something about music that has this vibrational energy that, yeah, when I feel music, it sort of energizes me,
Yeah, like, it
which is
pumps you
very
up.
interesting.
It makes you ready to go do something,
Which is
you
interesting when you think
know?
about it, right? Because it's just your ear taking in an input, yet it's causing me to physically now I have energy, now I'm
You know, you
excited, I'm
can't
pumped.
you can't think about Rocky without thinking about Eye of the Tiger, you
Oh, yeah,
know?
yeah, that's
Oh,
You
yeah.
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yeah, and, like, going back to, like, Fooly Cooly and the Pillows, like, they've done every song for that show,
Mm.
you
Yeah,
know?
think of things like themes like Indiana Jones, Back to the Future, where it seems like it's weird that nowadays I feel like these like big movies don't necessarily have these memorable themes. It's more of
Mhm.
just atmospheric sounds to make you feel like you're in some, but not necessarily a memorable theme. Does that sound
Kinda like
accurate?
soundscapes. Yeah, I mean, I don't really consume a lot of media anymore that much anymore. Like, I still watch, like, TV and, like,
Yeah.
anime and stuff. Um, but no, I think I would pretty much agree with
Yeah,
that.
usually
I
if
mean,
you're gonna
not
get good
saying
music from something, it's gonna be an anime.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, like, think about, like, the first like, the Raimi Spider-Man films.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
when you
that
heard
was
that
good. Danny Elfman, that was like the last of that.
like, yeah,
Yeah,
you knew, like, that was gonna be, like, a Spider-Man movie,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
And I would even say the Tom Holland Spider-Mans, I can't even think of what it
Nope,
sounds like.
nope.
Everything's just Hans Zimmer-like
Yeah,
tones.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, it's interesting because I'm thinking back to it and I'm like, "Man, we don't have the type of cartoons like Looney Tunes anymore where, like, the music actually informed what was going on screen, where it was like, oh, if
Mhm.
someone's running, it's like you have, like, some keys playing, like, and
that's yeah.
the music almost punctuated the action that was going on screen. It actually gave me an idea for, like, a pretty cool video game where it's like, even if it were, like, a combat video game, it would be interesting to have, like,
Huh.
music play based on, like, what's happening. So,
Have you played Hi-Fi
Well, I
Rush?
would say that,
no,
if
I haven't.
any media were to be doing that right now, it probably is video games, Like, what was
Oh,
I
yeah.
playing last? I was playing, like, Near
Yeah,
Automata, which
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm now figuring out that there are a bunch of those.
Yeah, there's a Nier that came out first, then Nier Automata, and then I think there's another one that came out after that, unless that was an expansion, I forget, but
I think that might have been an expansion to
okay.
Automata, but yeah,
Which one? That might also be in the same realm of anime too, if I really
I
think
think
about it.
so. I think that's what
Yeah.
they're kind of trying to create in that. Yeah,
yeah, it's very cool.
yeah, yeah, and the other thing too I like about video game music, especially retro music, and not because, oh, it sounds retro, but more of the limitations that the composers had in order to try to make a sound. And from that comes unique sounds or music that you
Mhm.
probably wouldn't get if you had everything you needed to make any sound you wanted.
I think that's why I love, like, Game Boy music.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
chiptune style.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, all the
I'm
Mega Man soundtracks
Yep.
and,
yeah,
like
Rockman, like, all those stuff, man. Yeah, and I
Castlevania music for me is some of my favorite. I don't know if you ever heard any Castlevania tunes. They had like the Castlevania music, Konami music group that did the Castlevania. They call them the Castlevania team, I think. But then
mm,
there is this specific individual. She's a female. I don't want to butcher her name. It's Japanese. Then she started doing all the music, but she has a very orchestrated sound that she's able to do in the limitations
oh, yeah,
of. Yeah,
right. I know who you're talking about. I have no
yeah,
idea what their name is,
yeah,
so
yeah. Her name starts with an M.
it's
But
definitely better than that, Japanese composer that they got for the, director's cut of Resident Evil, where remember he was, like, trying to sell himself as, like, "Oh, I'm deaf, and I'm, like, this deaf composer," and it turned out that he was a fraud,
oh,
like,
I didn't know about that.
wait,
That's
what?
oh,
interesting.
man, this is such a crazy story. Yeah, for those of you in the chat that don't know about it, go look it up after the stream. But yeah, there was
Huh,
this famous Japanese composer. He was pretending to be deaf, and he had like a shadow writer that was doing all of his professional music. So in order to promote the Resident Evil director's cut that had come out on PS1, they brought him in to do the soundtrack, and it is awful. Like everything is out of key, and it's just
oh, no.
Interesting. You know,
Huh,
that kind of reminds me of something else. I don't know if you guys have heard this. It's like a human thing where when I worked at a movie theater in my teens, there was another guy that worked there that said that he made the music for Final Fantasy VII. And obviously he didn't, but he loved it so much that it's like he wanted to tell people, "I made this. You need to listen to it." And isn't that interesting?
huh.
But it's just that person loved it so much that it was almost like a they were in love with it almost too much to
Hmm.
where they wanted people to experience it so bad, which on one hand, that's cool, wanting to share something, but to the extent where you have to say, "Well, I made this,"
I
then
don't like
it's
that. Like, that just
If you have to lie, then you're probably if you have to lie to get people to do what you want, you're probably the bad guy.
yeah.
but what's interesting is,
Don't
though,
mess
at
with my
that
reality
time,
like that.
and it might have been different with other people and the age range too, because this is when I was in, like, my later teens, you
Huh.
know, I wasn't talking with other friends and girls about Final Fantasy or video games at that time, so,
Yeah.
like so for someone to have to, like, say it in that way, it's almost like, how can I get through to people that Final Fantasy and the music is awesome?
I made
Not
it.
that that's the best way to go about it, but it's just interesting that that's
Uh,
how deeply he felt about it, you
I
know?
do love me some Final Fantasy VII, though.
What's that?
I
Did
do
you
love
did
Final
you
Oh.
did you get a chance to play, like, the remake and all that?
I played the first remake, I do not have a PlayStation 5 yet.
Oh.
Neither
So,
do I. That's
yeah, but
But did you like
I
the remake?
love I loved it,
Cool.
because I'm a huge Kingdom Hearts fan, so,
Ah, okay.
sweet.
it was kind of like the same gameplay, and I don't know, I love I love Cloud's story. I think I just turned, like, 30, like, last Monday.
Yeah,
So,
oh, hey, happy belated
Happy
birthday.
birthday.
thank you.
Wel
So, I
welcome
don't
to the
know, it's
club.
like the kind of, like, finding yourself, refining yourself in your adult age, even though he's, like, what, 20, 21, 22, but, like, close enough.
Yeah.
Like, I felt that.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm 40 and I feel like I'm now becoming an adult.
Yeah,
It's weird.
I don't I think it's, like, every 10 years that's just gonna happen.
Yeah,
Like,
you're right. I
Pretty
bet
much.
it is like that. Yeah.
yeah, every, like, 3 or 4 years, you find yourself, and then the next year, you lose yourself again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think so. It's part of that journey, part of that
yeah.
process. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I mean, like, you look at it and it's funny where you can find yourself identifying with people that are not your age, that are not kind of in your current walk of life. I mean, like I said, we're sitting here talking about like the child soldiers of Gundam, and it's like, these are like 15-year-old kids, and like, we're, in our 30s, 40s, like, oh yeah, I can see why he felt that way. And like, I definitely, I empathize with that. And
Mhm.
Ultronymous from chat actually had a couple questions.
Oh, okay.
oh yeah.
I can ask you real quick. Um, have you ever done like a battle of the bands type thing?
It's weird, I was thinking about that today. Oh, goodness.
Oh,
Yeah, no, that didn't go well. That was
oh, okay. But was it
well,
pretty fun
that was
though?
I mean, it was alright.
Okay.
Like, it was with my first high school band, and, like, it just like, I think, like, 2 of the dudes ended up getting high right before we went
Oh,
on.
okay.
We
Yeah.
were supposed to do 1 song, and then, like, it just wasn't going well, so we did, like, a different song, like, a song we've done, like, 8 different times in the same, like, school talent show, so, like, yeah, I
Ah.
don't know.
But it's like one of those things where it's like you have to have gone through that, like to
Yeah.
kind of experience that.
Dude, I
Um,
was in like a scam battle of the bands where it was like, in order to qualify to be in it, they gave you like a roll of 200 tickets and you had to sell a certain number of tickets. And so it was like me and my friend Tyler, who was the bassist in my band in high school, we were like trying to sell them around school and stuff. It was
oh,
weird.
That was
yeah, that is weird.
pay to play. Like, that
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
I would have
that was
rather just like written them a check and been like,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
right?
And then Ultronymous had
Unbelievable.
another question, which Ultronymous is a longtime like member of both of our streams, always contributing.
Shout out
yeah.
Ultronix.
Is there anything you wish you could play but can't currently? Maybe
Oh,
something you're
like,
struggling with that you're trying to nail down.
song-wise or instrument-wise?
Maybe both.
Let's do both. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. See, song-wise right now, I really want to learn the entirety of Cliff of Dover. I gave up after or not gave up, I stopped after learning, like, the main riff. I'm talking about the but, I don't know, I think I've crossed the threshold where I think I can learn the full song now if I really wanted to.
That's cool. It's like about the repetition, really.
Yeah.
You figure out
Yeah,
over time.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there's just a lot there, but it's a
Yeah.
cool song. Yeah, Hammer on some pull-offs. Instrument-wise, um, I don't know, maybe
Not the
like
banjo.
not the banjo.
You could
I think it'd
probably
be
do that well.
cool to have oh god, what are they called? Not a the thing that's like you use your hand and there's
Oh,
like
the
an an
Therium?
yeah,
I think
those
it's
seem
called, like
pretty cool.
Or
I might be saying that wrong, but I know what you're talking about. That thing is pretty
yeah,
neat.
That's
Let
what
me
it's
look
called,
that
theremin, theremin,
theremin, yeah.
theremin, yeah.
Theremin, okay.
Those are
Yeah,
That is
that is a
pretty
neat one.
cool.
yeah, I think they're like $200, I might buy one.
I mean, shoot, you could probably even make one, honestly. I bet they have, like, schematics online and
Huh, I don't know if
That
I
is
could buy
pretty interesting because it's almost like you're physically manipulating vibration,
I
like,
feel yeah, I feel like that just makes sense to me,
yeah,
like, I feel like it's like spatial music.
yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's like, one of the things that I do a lot of is, have you ever played with an EBow?
Debo?
Oh, never heard of that.
I
EBow?
feel like I've
It's
heard of
like
that.
it's basically like a little electromagnet that you use to, like, it
Oh.
basically strums your
Oh,
guitar strings
Oh,
for
yeah,
you.
I've seen those, yeah.
So, yeah, so that was when I was playing, I was filling in for a lot of, like, the cello parts that were played
Oh,
on the
that's
album,
cool.
and so I was
You're
using
using
EBow to simulate that, with a
yeah,
guitar, which was cool. I mean, like,
that is.
um,
I
but
love things like that too, when you're trying to, basically find, like, workarounds for instruments you don't have.
Yeah,
yeah, well, and I think it goes back to what Adam was saying earlier, where it's like, when you have these limitations that you have to work within, that's when, like, real creativity kinda comes out because
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Do you use any I think you were talking about what you use to record the guitar, but do you use any sequencers? Digital sequencers?
Um,
Like, I use FL Studio. I've used it since the late
there
'90s,
were,
and
like, a few in, like, Logic. I feel
oh,
like
yeah.
I may have in a song or 2.
Okay,
I
so
could
but it's mainly recorded stuff. You don't do any synthesizing.
like, I'll put in some, like, synths and stuff for, like to kinda just, like, fill out the sound,
Cool.
if need be. Like, I'm pretty sure there's some in Avalanche if you listen to it.
Yeah,
There's
because that's the interesting thing, like, some music I've been trying to make lately in FL Studio, I'm trying to mimic, like, violins and it's so
mhm,
hard where I'm like, "Okay, I'll grab this instrument and this and try to combine it," but out of that, then I'll come up with a new sound. I'm like, "Oh, this is neat," and
yeah.
then I'll just run with it.
It's hard to, like, kind of like, do electronic instruments and, like, DAWs
Yeah.
just because, like, they're so there's a lot of, like, crescendos and, like
Yeah, the
and,
dynamics that you can
like,
pull
yeah,
off
try to
on
get
your
that
own.
dynamics unless you,
Yeah.
like,
yeah,
know
you
how to
really have to,
program
like
them,
yeah,
you
you have
know?
to, like, really dial it in and,
And that in itself is just like learning how to use the DAW, you know?
Yeah,
Which
that's
is like
interesting. 'Cause there's that music theory that, like, some people, like, probably yourself, you could just pick up. Like, even with me with a
mhm,
guitar, it's like, on a guitar, I can understand what sounds I need to get, but then when I'm working in the DAW, and then I'm looking at a virtual keyboard, and I'm like, "Okay, which key would make this sound?" And I can't really
right,
like, on a guitar, it's like I can control that
right,
and play around with it, but in the electric I have to spend more time. "Okay, does this sound right?
yeah,
No. Does this sound right?"
mhm,
Yeah. There's
yeah,
something about playing it real on an instrument that allows you to quickly get there.
yeah, and I mean, like, I took, like, a year or a semester of music theory in college, and
Oh.
maybe at one point I utilized it, but the majority of that is just gone now, so
Really?
we're back to
Interesting.
button mashing.
Yeah,
yeah.
that
Something sounds good.
I
that's
mean,
cool.
I've had both, like, I've heard both things, like, there's people that are really hardcore about music theory and suggest that you, like, it's almost like a shortcut to do the things that you want. But, then it's the same thing with like us. Like I'm self-taught for the most part. Like you, I had one class in
Mhm.
college of music theory, and it was interesting, but
But you don't
like
think you've held on to anything from that?
Me?
no, not at all.
Or you?
Oh, Steven,
But
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
'Cause I no,
no,
we
not at
hadn't
all.
talked about that as much, because yeah, I wasn't too sure. That's interesting. So,
Like,
yeah, you guys then, I guess, had similar experiences then when it came to learning music theory? It's like it's nothing you really held on to?
I mean, like, I get it, but it's like I hear the harmonies, you know? Sometimes I'll hear harmonies when they're not there, and I'm like, "Do you guys hear that?" I guess
And then
it's
you'll
like
try to find it and be like, "Okay, this
yeah,
is what." Yeah.
I guess it's like the overtones sometimes they drive me crazy, and, like, I'm like, "Okay, so this goes here. This needs to come up more, come out more." And that's, like, kinda how I write my parts a lot. Uh,
That's cool.
That's awesome. Um, oh yeah, this is I'm just gonna call this particular chat out because I think that it's relevant here is 16x a second says music is a language that you'll quickly forget when you don't actively speak it, which
I it's interesting how that works because so, like, with drumming, I would take, like, 5 years of not drumming and then get back into it. What's strange is every time I get back into drumming, I end up leveling up somehow, and I don't
huh,
know if the break kind of
uh,
reconfigures my ability,
mhm.
like, I get out of a rut I got myself in, and now my mind's clear to be like, "Okay, Adam, you know drums, let's now" like, for instance, I used to have so much trouble doing double bass metal,
Mhm.
like, I love that stuff. And it was just yeah, when I picked it back up maybe 5 years ago that it just clicked, and then I'm just double bassing the whole time. I'm like, "Wow, it finally it clicked." Um, I find but what about what's the longest you've gone without composing something?
Without writing something? I
Yeah,
mean, I'm I've been kinda just collecting riffs for the past
yeah.
year and a half or 2, so now I'm finally kinda putting all those into fruition, but there was, like, a long period of time, I would go, like, a year, maybe 2 without writing anything.
Not writing, but you would still play though.
Well, yeah, well, because,
Yeah.
like, that's my job, you know? So,
Okay,
like
so
you
yeah,
have
you've
to.
that part has never yeah,
but, like, in terms of playing, it's like, you just turn your brain off and you're playing the songs you've played, like, a million times
yeah.
before. You're not really, like, innovating or doing anything new. Uh,
It's like you programmed yourself pretty much. It
yeah,
reminds me of video games. Like, when I'm playing a boss, many times I know when I need to dodge, I know when I need
yeah,
to block.
yeah. It's, like, active when you're, like, sitting down at own home and, like, picking up your guitar and, like, "Okay, I'm gonna write something new." There was a
Yeah,
long period of not doing that.
that is a different mindset.
Mhm. So
Yeah.
that's another thing about, like, I think you said something about marketing for yourself is, like, knowing how to separate those avenues of, knowing when to play for other people when you're playing for yourself, and then when you're playing just to play,
Yeah.
you
Interesting.
know?
That's a
Well, and
good
that's
point.
something that, there's a comic book artist by the name of Jake Parker that, he does like kind of YouTube videos whenever he has sort of these creative revelations. And especially being a creative in the digital age and in the age of social media, he was like, I noticed that I was getting way more likes and way more follows and stuff when I would post like sketches instead of doing like finished work. And
Mhm.
so by playing to the algorithm, then you're like, "Well, why would I complete an entire piece of work when I get much more engagement from just doing a work in progress? Oh, here's a little sketch I did.
Mhm.
Here's a doodle." But, from a music standpoint, it's like you might never get to finish a song if all you're
And
posting is like the
yeah,
riffs.
yeah, I get that,
But
and, like,
but I'm
that's
sure that
what I
you
was
get tons of
doing
likes on them.
for a
Like
while ago, like,
Mhm.
so if you go back far enough, you'll see that I posted Avalanche, like, the main, like, probably about,
Yeah,
like, 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and I just finished it, like, in September of last year.
yeah.
Wow.
So,
And I
yeah,
mean, that
that
riff is
happened.
fantastic. So, yeah. And I can't believe I haven't even said it yet. Like, guys, obviously, links down in the description below. Howling at the Earth is on literally every music anywhere where you would listen to music, Spotify, Apple,
Sweet.
everywhere.
Thank you.
Go listen if you love these types of melodic uh riffs. And I mean, it's just great work. So yeah, I can't praise you enough.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I appreciate you for, having me on the show.
No,
Like,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think that I mean, this is the kind of stuff that we like to do here is like just talk about the creative process and inspirations and things coming from different places. Although I do have to ask, before we kind of wrap up, since we're almost at the end of the hour anyway, it wouldn't be a Gundam show if I didn't ask you what your favorite Gundam was.
my favorite Gundam?
Yeah.
I mean, it's God. I'm always, like, generic, and I wanna say the Wing Gundam, but, like,
It's okay.
I feel
None
like
wrong.
that's, like, my first choice, but I don't know. I really like the one was it Woo oh, man, I like the Scythe Gundam too, though.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Dual
That's like
Gundam's pretty cool too. Hmm. Immediate choice would be the Wing Gundam. Second choice would probably be, hmm, between Catra's Gundam,
Oh,
and
yeah,
Sandrock?
then
Sandrock?
Sandrock?
Sandrock, yeah, and was it what's Wu Fang's called?
Wu Fei,
Shenlong?
Ultron?
Wu Fei?
Oh, Shenlong.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
with
his arm
the
reminds me of Piccolo slash Luffy. I
That's cool.
just caught up in One Piece not too long ago. So
Oh, yeah. What did you think of the live action one? 'Cause
I haven't watched
I
it
never
yet.
watched,
I haven't watched it yet. I
yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, I haven't watched it.
I mean, it seems like people are kind of praising it, so I'm
Yeah,
guessing they did a good job.
I've heard
You
that
know,
too.
I've
Yeah,
seen some of the CGI like stretching, and it looks weird, but like that's like the point. Like One Piece, it's goofy.
Yeah.
You know?
exactly. I think that's why like, old Dragon Ball Z movie didn't quite land right because it was like, "Oh, this just" like, they're trying to
Well,
make it too realistic and
they didn't know what they wanted to be.
yeah.
That
Yeah, not
was
even as a
just
movie, just that straight
yeah.
up as a movie, it didn't work. I only saw the first 15 minutes because out of curiosity, and I was just like, "No."
All right,
Yeah.
so Dragon Ball movie or live action Avatar, the first one. Which
I
one?
I haven't even seen that Avatar movie.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah.
Huh.
What
Those
which is
both,
it for
though, have
you?
had bad reception, so
They were both extremely bad.
Yeah.
Like,
Now, we both are big fans of the, first live action Gundam movie, G Savior. So we are G Savior apologists here.
yeah.
what? There's
Yeah,
live
it
action?
was a late '90s, early 2000s, kinda straight to
What?
DVD. It's not it's not really good, but it's not bad. It's
Is it
actually
like
it's
wait, you remember like so they did an old Dragon Ball movie called it was like Journey to the West or something. It wasn't Journey to the West. It was called something like
I know what
that.
you're talking about because it's based on that myth, like,
Yeah,
that's
but
similar.
they didn't call it Dragon Ball, but it was Dragon Ball.
I didn't see it either.
And it's actually pretty cool. Like
Okay. I'm gonna have to check that out.
yeah.
But yeah, definitely go, check out G Savior. You'll probably recognize some of the costumes because they're recycled from Starship Troopers.
Yeah, it's a light watch too, like, it's nothing offensive, it's
Huh.
lighthearted, some neat action. The acting
Yeah,
is actually good considering everything else looks low budget, so
Yeah.
I love
It's
that.
like one of those Sci-Fi Channel movies if you
Like, oh, so like kind of like
it reminds me of, like
B-rated special effects.
yeah,
Yeah.
because it reminds me of, like, the Star Trek: Next Generation or those other '90s sci-fi late
I kind
'90s
of like
sci-fi
that
shows.
though.
Yeah,
Like, I
it
like
has a
when
charm to it.
yeah, when
Yeah,
movies don't really take themselves too seriously.
yeah,
So yeah, maybe I'll check that out.
For sure. Well, hey man, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us today. This has been really awesome
yeah.
and,
Because we don't talk about music as much, and I love music. I love
Yeah,
talking about
no, I
music.
right, this is like a
appreciate it.
treat for Adam.
This
Yeah.
is awesome. We get to talk about music, video game, and anime. That's like,
Yeah, I know.
hello,
Not a bad way to spend a day.
you found me. Have like some pizza or something afterwards.
Hell
Like,
yeah. There you go.
Absolutely, man. Sweet.
Cool.
Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Definitely go check out Howling at the Earth. Fantastic music. And yeah, until then, we will catch you on the next show. And thank
yeah,
you for your
yeah.
questions for Wayne as well. Um, yeah, thank you both for hanging out with me this
And
afternoon.
feel free to reach out to me on like Instagram or mainly
Good.
Instagram
Yeah,
or email me. I don't know.
let's do
But
that.
yeah, thanks for
Heck
having me.
yeah.
It was a
Yeah,
good one.
I need to get you since you're like around my neck of the woods. I'm like, man, you gotta come down here and
Oh, yeah, that'd be cool.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. Actually, I'm pretty sure I will be in Fredericksburg kind of soon. So.
Sweet. Yeah, before we do, sign off, you don't have any upcoming tour dates. I checked your site and you didn't have any upcoming.
No tour dates outside of like Virginia and like
Okay.
Maryland. But so if you're on the Eastern Panhandle, there's a chance you could see me.
Yeah,
Or
well,
East Coast, sorry.
yeah, right here in the DMV
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Oh, I do
Alright.
have some stuff coming out, probably late August. So,
Oh, exciting. Birthday
yeah.
Okay.
present for Adam and I because we're both late August, birthdays.
Yeah.
Ah, oh,
That's
nice.
Yeah,
good
see, we're all summer babies here.
Leo, Virgo? Virgo, Leos?
Virgo.
A Virgo.
Virgo? Ah, cool, cool. You bring some order to my my Gemini cancerness.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I
I
think
don't know
that's the
about that.
dynamic with me and my wife as well.
Oh,
Yeah. She's
interesting.
Panther.
Hmm. But
All
no,
right.
thank you guys so much, and, we will catch you later.
All right. See you
See
later.
ya.